Born in 1911 in Baltimore without the development of his legs, Johnny Eck became a well-known figure in the 1930s. He went from sideshows and circuses to Hollywood sets, acted in Todd Browning's Freaks alongside Angelo Rossito, and wore the strange creature costume in the Tarzan movies, all while playing music, painting, and putting together small performances for audiences. He became a symbol of resilience for many people. In December 1952 in London, the Bertram Mills Circus opened the night like any other show of the time. Suddenly, the gorilla Elvira jumped out of the decorative cage, made the clowns run, and a fake hunter named Charlie tried to hold her back. The audience, in a United Kingdom still marked by the war, laughed and got scared at the same time, paying to feel that chill in their stomachs. Tricks like this became a trend in the Olympia circuses. In the early 1900s, a lot of circuses in the US put on playful boxing acts with one really skinny guy and one really heavy guy. It was pure slapstick, planned punches, over-the-top falls, gloves flying. The audience knew it was all staged, but they laughed, shouted, and kept buying tickets to watch that make-believe brawl. For a lot of older people today, it brings back memories of the old childhood matinees. In September 1945, on a small farm in Fruita, Colorado, farmer Lloyd Olson chopped off a rooster's head for dinner and realized the bird was still going strong, trying to walk even without its head. Named Mike, he was fed with an eyedropper, traveled around fairs across the country, and eventually ended up in the hands of doctors and scientists who tried to explain how that body was still functioning until his death in 1947. At the start of the 20th century, the Bertram Mills Circus became a big business in London. Horse acts, clowns, and off to the side of the ring, people with bodies outside the norm, shown as curiosities. Doctors would go up on stage to examine these people while posters sold the attractions with strange nicknames just to fill the stands, mixing science, showmanship, and exploitation without much questioning. In 1965, in a packed circus in Munich, former tamer Kara Kawak walked into the arena with two crocodiles. The audience, silent, watched as he made the animals stay still, like time had frozen. In Germany, shows like that played with people's fears and gave the feeling that inside that tent, courage was the only thing that mattered. A lot of people walked out of there telling that story for years, as if they'd witnessed a duel. At the end of the 19th century, when the circus was the main entertainment in small towns, Ella Harper, born in 1870 in Tennessee with a knee deformity, drew attention for getting around on her hands and feet. In 1886, she became the main attraction of the Nickel Plate Circus, earning $200 a week and showing how show business was starting to bring money and fame to anyone willing to live outside the norm. At the start of the 20th century, in circuses and amusement parks, contortionists were advertised as people with rubber bodies. Many started as kids, training for hours to twist their arms, bend their spines, and fit into tiny boxes. The audience was split. Some laughed and clapped, while others wondered if it was all a trick or just the human body pushed to the extreme, tested right there in front of them. At the end of the 1800s, amusement parks and traveling circuses in the U.S. set up their tents to show human attractions. People who were very short, very tall, very strong, or had some unusual talent. Parents took their kids, bought popcorn, pointed, laughed, whispered. They left talking about it for days, while the people running the show counted every dollar earned and planned for the next Saturday. It was entertainment and business at the same time. Around 1844, the Belgian Charles Bonnier recorded the boy Charles Sherwood Stratton, who the public would soon call General Tom Thumb. With his growth limited by dwarfism, he became P.T. Barnum's big bet. On packed tours, men and families paid to see a body treated as a curiosity, a sign of a world learning how to make money from difference and from its own idea of what's considered normal. Prince Randian came into the world in 1871 in what was then British Guiana and, as an adult, crossed the Caribbean to the United States to work in circuses. Born without arms or legs, he became a famous attraction. He lit cigarettes, rolled paper, moved around on stage, and eventually appeared in the 1932 film Freaks. His life still sparks discussions about spectacle, dignity, and the limits of what the public is willing to watch when they pay out of curiosity. At the end of the 19th century, during the Victorian era, the story of Edward Mordake started circulating in England, a lord who was said to have been born with a second face on the back of his head. People claimed that this face whispered insults at night, no doctor agreed to operate, and according to the legend, he killed himself before turning 25. To this day, no one knows if it was a real case or a medical invention, and that uncertainty keeps the story alive among curious people around the world. Joseph Merrick was born in 1862 in England and saw his body change in ways no one understood, eventually becoming a fairground attraction called the Elephant Man. With no other income, he agreed to be displayed. Later, Dr. Frederick Trevis took him to a hospital, showing the country that behind the deformities was a man tired of living as a spectacle and wanting to be treated with the same respect as anyone else. In the 1940s, a Dutchman named Arnold Gerrit Henskes, who performed under the name Miran Dejo, went on stage and let people run full swords straight through his body. Doctors in Switzerland examined him, took x-rays, saw the blade inside him, and still couldn't find a solid explanation for what was going on. To this day, no one really knows if it was a trick or something truly out of the ordinary. At the end of the 1920s, Daisy and Violet Hilton, conjoined twins born in 1908 in England, were already traveling across the United States on tour trains, sold as part of a curiosity show. Since they were little, they were trained non-stop to sing and dance, packing vaudeville theaters, while other men kept the money and they could only dream of one day being in charge of their own lives, far from contracts and huge bills. Johanna Pauline Musters was born in 1876 in the small town of Ossendrecht in the Netherlands, with a body that barely reached 60 centimeters. Still a child, her parents took her on tours across Europe and later to New York, where she became an attraction in packed theaters, in a time when different people were treated as living curiosities. She died in 1895, but her name remains recorded as one of the smallest in history. Born in 1874 in northern India, Lalu Ramparsad carried on his chest the malformed remains of his twin brother. Instead of disappearing from the world, he joined circuses and sideshows, crossed oceans with P.T. Barnum, and turned it into a livelihood. For the crowds who filled the tents, meeting Lalu was a shock to their idea of what a normal body is. At the time, he was sold as a curiosity, but his story was really about survival. In the 1930s, a German man named Martin Lorello, already living in the United States, became a star of fairs and circuses at the time. He'd step on stage, turn his back to the audience, and suddenly twist his head almost all the way around, looking at people over his shoulder. In an America hungry for odd entertainment during the Great Depression, anyone with an unusual body became a guaranteed attraction and kept the show owners' cash registers running. Born in Sicily in 1889, Francesco Frank Lentini came into the world with part of a conjoined twin attached to him and grew up with 3 functional legs. As a child, he crossed the Atlantic with his parents, joined major circuses like Ringling Brothers, and became a regular attraction, filling tents and newspapers while the whole country debated how far the limits of the human body could go. In every city, lots of people left not knowing whether to applaud. In 1868, in rural Tennessee, Josephine Myrtle Corbin was born with a condition called dipygus, which made her body split into 2 pelvises and 4 legs. As a teenager, she started performing in fairs and circuses. Later, she left the road, married James Clinton Bicknell, raised 5 children, and lived an ordinary life in Texas, something that still intrigues doctors and curious people today. At the end of the 19th century, Fannie Mills drew attention in Ohio because of her enormous feet, the result of a rare condition now known as Milroy disease. She performed at fairs and freak shows, where everyday people bought tickets just to look. Her life is a reminder of how many different bodies turned into business at a time when medicine barely understood these cases and could do almost nothing for them. Born in 1811 in what was then Siam, Chang and Eng Bunker came into the world joined at the chest. Still young, they traveled the globe on tours that showcased their rare bodies. Over time, they saved up good money, moved to North Carolina, bought farms, married 2 sisters, and raised a huge family, trying to live life like any other American citizen in a time when difference scared people. At the end of the 19th century, Unzi was taken to the United States to travel with the Barnum and Bailey Circus. Newspapers said he was promoted as a beautiful aboriginal from Australia, with light skin and hair puffed up like a white helmet. While the audience paid to look, businessmen made a fortune, and a man became part of the show. Something seen as normal at the time, and hardly anyone questioned it. George and Willie Muse grew up on a small farm near Roanoke, Virginia. Still boys, the 2 black albino brothers were taken by a circus talent scout and shown across the United States as the Martian Brothers, without seeing a single cent. Years later, tired of waiting, their mother found them on her own at a ringling show and fought in court until she secured payment and freedom for both of them. Around 1864 in San Carlos in rural Mexico, Lucia Zarate was born, so small she could fit in someone's lap even as an adult. Promoters saw a chance to make money and took her to circuses, including Barnum's, turning her body into a show and an example of how curiosity and profit went hand in hand in the 19th century. Many people, whole families, paid to see that tiny young woman up close in the ring. In 1906 in Denver, Jacob Reuben Ehrlich was born, the man the public would come to know as Jack Earl. Because of a tumor in his pituitary gland, he kept growing non-stop and became a rare attraction, promoted as the Giant of Texas. He acted in silent films, toured the country for 14 years with the Ringling Circus, and later hit the road as a well-known traveling salesman. At a time when the circus was the big family outing, nobody forgot a guy like that. Around 1890 in Maryland, Reverend Evans became famous for living with a large open hole in his chest. He let doctors and curious onlookers examine the wound at a time when illness itself became an attraction. In his sermons, he spoke about faith, pain, and the end of life, and many people left the church trying to understand how that man was still breathing. Some came back more than once, convinced there was some kind of sign of fate in him. At the turn of 1900, a man from Wisconsin named Felix Wehrle made a living in circuses and dime museums traveling around the country. He stretched his skin like rubber and bent his fingers until they almost touched his wrist, all under the freak show label, which was common at the time. Today, people believe he had Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, and that unusual body ended up paying his family's bills through many long years on the road. At the end of the 19th century, the Russian Fyodor Jevtichu, who had hypertrichosis, was exhibited by P.T. Barnum as Jojo, the dog-faced boy. He traveled through the U.S. and Europe, sold as a wild boy found in a cave, while in reality he was just trying to earn a living in a market that treated his face as an attraction. For many people back then, he was a curiosity. For him, it was just a job with no better options. Annie Jones was born in 1865 in Virginia. Still a baby, she was taken to P.T. Barnum's show, billed as a hairy miracle. She grew up crossing the United States in circus tents and train cars, became the most famous bearded woman, and earned so much that people said she made more than the president. As an adult, she started to wonder whether what she did was art or just people making money off her body in that world.